going to do right now is revisit an activity we did last week, except we're going to use a new feature that I've discovered called Graspable Math to help us solve these equations. So let's first remind ourselves of the activity where we found equivalent representations. So if you recall, we used this template here to answer a couple of questions. In this particular one, we were looking at the cost is $10 to get in a fare and $3 per ride. So remember, we figured out a table of values, an equation, and graphed it, and then determined if it was positive, partial, or in the positive, partial, and discrete. Remember, in this scenario, the 3 times r represent the rate of change of $3 per ride, or the slope, or the first difference. And the $10 was your flat rate, your initial value, your y-intercept. So it costs $10 to get in. That's why 0 rides cost $10, and then 1 ride is $3 more, $3 more, $3 more, and you get this graph. So that was all what we reviewed. And then at the end, we tried to answer these 2 questions here. What's the cost for 12 rides? And then how many rides does it cost for $55? The first one was okay. As we typed in the algebra, we know that typing the algebra steps is difficult on the computer. It's much easier to do it by hand. But this one did okay. So instead of 3 times r, we did 3 times 12 and got 36, added the $10 to get 46. But then what became a challenge was trying to work backwards to solve for r. And I tried my best to try and demonstrate some ways to do that. But when I noticed when I was looking at here, it was a bit of a challenge to try and do it for other questions. And I recognize that. But we were kind of restricted with the typing that's necessary in Google Slides here. And so what I've discovered is this thing called Graspable Math that will allow us to demonstrate those last 2 questions a little bit differently. And I think if you like it, we might be able to use it for other things. So we're going to try and replicate and do these 2 questions using that. So you can get to Graspable Math by going to this website, but I've got a canvas set up already with the questions that we're trying to solve. So in scenario 1, you remember the equation was c equals 3r plus 10. That came straight from here. Capital C being the cost, little r being the rides. And I'm stressing the capital C and the r, and you'll see why in a second. Okay, and so let's go back to this. We've got that equation here, and we're going to try and answer these 2 questions. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to go to the original equation and use it to answer this question. So we're going to select on the little circle to the left and drag it over here, and it'll duplicate that equation. And what we're going to do is actually substitute in the r, because in this question we know that r is 12. To do that, we're going to create a new little expression. So we're going to go off to the left here and go Insert, Math Expression, and our thing will pop up here. And we're going to type in r equals 12. When we push done, it's going to pop up on the board. Now, it's kind of in the way right there, so I'm going to drag it over here. To drag it, you're going to just move to the left of the expression, and then you'll be able to go and drag it over here. If you're having trouble dragging things, you can go to Arrange button up at the top, and then you'll see these are more like text boxes that are easier to move. Okay, but I'm going to get out of the Arrange because we need to be in the Transform view. Okay, and you can see just to the left, you'll be able to rearrange. All right, so I've got that r is 12 because in this particular question, we have 12 rides. Now the best part about this is we're actually going to substitute this into the equation. So to do that, you can actually grab the r value and go and substitute it in for r. We can't sub it in for c, that doesn't make sense. You see, that doesn't, it's not where we're not replacing that, so I've just pushed undo. We're going to go and substitute it in for r. And there we have it. Now you'll see 3 times 12 plus 10. Now I can actually grab these bubbles on the side to show the steps as we go along. So instead of 3 times r, it's 3 times 12. Now we'll ask Graspable Math to do these calculations. 3 bracket 12 means times. So if I click on the brackets, you'll see 3 times 12. That step then, anytime you want to perform an operation in Graspable Math, you need to click on that operation. Now, notice if I try this plus 12, it's not allowing me to do that. And that's because order of operations tells me I have to multiply before I add. So I can't add those together. That's great news. It's going to remind us that we have to multiply. So I'm going to click on the multiply symbol, and you'll see the 3 times 12 is 36. Now I can add, and we get an answer of 46. And you see that's laid out pretty much exactly how we laid it out in our example. 3 times 12 is 36. We just, instead of saying 3 times 12, we actually did that multiplication. Got 36 plus 10 is 46. And here you can see that happening right there. So a great little way to demonstrate this. Now, we had some success with this over here. It was pretty easy to replicate that, but this was one that we had some struggle with. But let's see how Graspable Math will help us. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to move to the right of the equation, find the box, click and hold, and paste it over here. And we get a new version of the equation. This time we're answering how many rides cost $55. So we've got a new variable that we know. So again, we're going to insert a new expression. And this time I'm going to put capital C equals $55. Now, it's important that I put the capital C because my equation has a capital C. If I'd chosen a small c, it would think it's a different variable. All right, so there's C equals 55. And again, I'm just going to the left to drag it up here. Now we're going to substitute capital C equals 55 into our equation by dragging it. So we're going to take this and replace it with 55. All right, and again, if I move to the right, I'll see the 3 bubbles and be able to expand that so I can see all the steps. Now, Graspable Math says deal with these brackets because BESMath tells me I got to deal with it. So if I just click on the brackets, you'll see that disappear. Now, that step is kind of not important. So if you wanted to hide it, you can move it back up and just have this 55 being replaced and substituted in there. Now let's solve. So again, remember our steps for solving. We need to subtract 10 from both sides. You can either do it this way by clicking and holding the equal sign and going down here. Remember, this E tells me an operation is the equation. Sorry, this E is the entire equation. So we're going to subtract 10 from both sides. Or sorry, yeah, subtract 10 from both sides. So we can push subtract 10 and push done. And you see Graspable Math subtracts 10 from both sides by doing it right to the side. You remember I like to have that subtract 10 down underneath. Like here, you see how the subtract 10, subtract 10. But you can see I was doing the exact same thing. So I'm okay with this method. This is a good method as well. By doing this, though, it allows me to actually do the operations. So I can subtract 10 from this side, and of course the R, we're left with just R. And if I subtract 10 from this side, I get 45. Now we're at the stage right here. 3R equals 45. Great. Now I need to isolate for R, which means I have to do the inverse operation of 3. So I'm going to click and hold. Oh, sorry, that's undo. That just sort of flipped the other sides. I need to click and hold until it pops up, and now I have the equation again. So remember, I'm just going to, it was, oh, there we go. 45 equals 3R. So I need to divide both sides by 3. So I'm going to push divide by 3. It's going to take the equation, the E represents the equation, and divide both sides by 3. Now I can perform the actual operation. 3R divided by 3, of course, on this side is just going to be R, and 45 divided by 3 on this side is 15. You might think that might want to do those in one step, so I'm just going to move this up and see both of those operations happening in one step. All right, so here you can see how I beautifully demonstrated exactly what my thinking was in this question, and it's a much easier way than trying to deal with typing it in here. So what I'm going to challenge you to do now is go off and try the other scenarios using Graspable Math. You might want to keep this video open to help you go through the steps, and you can then try those steps to answer the other questions. The purpose of this is twofold. One is just get used to the Graspable Math canvas so that we might be able to use this in the future. And secondly, just to remind how we solve equations. Okay, so I'd like you to try this. I'm going to send you a link to this board, and I'll have this one here. And then you can watch this video and try some of the other scenarios. Good luck with this, and I hope you found Graspable Math kind of fun.